Alright, so the bump stock case might not be over. The guy from P.O Box Diner actually put out a really good theory.
The bump stock litigation in the United States is not over.
And then that one hottie from Armed Attorneys also went in on this, and they agree that it's not done yet.
We have another bump stock case pending. It's pending in the Fifth Circuit. Actually comes out of the great state of Texas.
So on one hand, I'm like, yeah, they got some very valid points. You know, this might not be over yet. Maybe we'll get to see something happen. On the other hand, I'm like, don't do that. Don't give me hope. Because this is something I really want to see taken care of. Because we're talking about Chevron deference here. That has been a thorn in the side of America since 1984 when it came out. Basically, it gives bureaucracies the ability to interpret law however they see fit. So if there's a question about the law in any way, shape, or form, the court is ordered to defer to the agency in charge of that law and their interpretation on it and to go along with what they say. Bump stocks is actually one step even farther. We're not just talking about Chevron deference here. They re-legislated. They actually rewrote the law to include bump stocks into the machine gun. So they're not just using Chevron deference, they're legislating. They're making laws.
I don't think that bump stocks get us to Chevron deference, first of all. But, because we're not really reinterpreting, we're not interpreting a statute, we're not interpreting a regulation. What the ATF is doing is legislating.
And I have to agree. I mean, Congress gave the ATF a lot of power, especially when you're talking about regulating something that's protected by the Constitution, but nowhere did they say that, hey, you guys can just go ahead and make new laws.
They're redefining machine gun, and that should be well beyond what they are capable of doing. And frankly, I'm shocked that the Supreme Court would deny cert on these two cases because it just seems so impermissible.
And that's why I really, really want to see this go up to the Supreme Court, because this is a big deal. Yeah, other agencies, it's a problem when they do it too, but when you're talking about the ATF, you're not just talking about, like, for example, the EPA. They reinterpret the Clean Air Act, and now all of a sudden we all got to own electric vehicles. Yeah, that's a problem, but people aren't going to jail over that. When the ATF reinterprets a law or changes their opinion about a law, that gets backdated all the way back to 1934 or 1986 or 1968, depending on exactly how they change it. So what that means is you're already a criminal. There is no ex post facto involved. Because they reinterpreted it and it dates back that far, even if they said, like, on Monday, hey, this is okay, this is totally legal, then on Tuesday they're like, no, this is not okay. They don't even have to tell you they changed their mind. They show up to your house with machine guns, a bunch of people, and they start shooting dogs. Like, that's bad. And they're able to do that because, again, when they reinterpret a law, that's backdated years ago. So you've been a criminal the whole entire time. They just were looking at the law wrong, and they didn't realize it. But now they've been enlightened, and they're looking at the law better. So now that they've been enlightened on the new interpretation of the law, well, you've been a criminal the whole time. So let's go over exactly why they think this is going to happen. Number one, there was no dissent. And I'll admit, I did find that weird. When I was called and told, hey, the Supreme Court didn't take the bump stock cases, I'm like, well, what was the reason? They're like, there is no reason. I'm like, what? Really? Like, they didn't say anything? They're like, no. I'm like, is that normal? And they're like, not usually. Normally there's some sort of dissent. So yeah, I get that. What really makes it stand out is it was recalendared 20 times. That means the judge kept pushing it back, and this was getting real annoying. I'm like, come on, just hear the bump stock case, because it will change the landscape of America, because there's only one way to rule, at least in my mind. So I'm like, hear the bump stock case, and I kept getting recalendared and rescheduled. I'm like, well, there's another one coming up. They're probably waiting for that so they can hear them both at the same time, and then the other one comes up, and they're like, no, we're not going to take it. And then there's no dissent. So, okay, that's weird. Like, I agree with him on that. What he's saying is that this case right here, the Cargill one, the bump stock case that already went through a 3-judge panel and now it's going to an en banc. I always pronounce that wrong. I think it's called en banc. Anyway, it's about to go to that point and it was accepted in. And he's thinking, since the Supreme Court judges seen that one get accepted in, They would rather hear that case, and for a couple of different reasons. Number one, the other two cases, that was just the plaintiff suing the government. That means it never went through trial, it has no legal record, and it might not have as much facts as if, somebody gets caught with a bump stock and then they get tried. Because then all the fact finding's done, stuff like that. Where the other two cases, the GOA case and the Aposhin case, that didn't have that happen. Those were just lawsuits against the government. So there was never a trial held, facts pulled out, and then to see how that goes out. So it skipped a part of the legal process. So he's thinking because that one didn't actually have a criminal trial involved with it, and the other one that's going through the Fifth Circuit right now does have a criminal trial attached to it, that is a better case to hear because most of the work's already done. The next one, like I said, it got taken to the Fifth Circuit. The en banc decided to take it. And he's thinking because they decided to take that, they're just going to get rid of the other two cases and wait for that one to come up. The next reason is the DOJ will be asking the Supreme Court to hear this case. It won't be the plaintiffs anymore. It'll be the Biden's DOJ. Apparently, for whatever reason, it's better to hear a case at the DOJ requests over a case at the plaintiff's request. I'm not a Supreme Court lawyer. I don't understand why that would make a difference, but apparently it does. So the next reason is the case that's going up to the Fifth Circuit right now has better lawyers involved. I'm not a Supreme Court lawyer. The guy from the P.O Box's diner is. He said that they have Philip Hamburger involved in that one, and apparently he even wrote books on Chevron deference, and he's like an expert on Chevron deference, and somehow the Aposhin case and the GOA case had shit lawyers or substandard lawyers, and there's some sort of politics involved in the Supreme Court, and they only want to hear cases from like grade A, top-notch lawyers, and for whatever reason, the GOA case and the Aposhin case was lacking that. So I don't know if maybe the Aposhin case and the GOA case shopped at Roundy's and got their lawyers from there, or what the deal is, or exactly what's going on there. But apparently the other case, the Cargill one, has actual good lawyers involved with it, and then that Philip Hamburger guy's involved with it.
And the lawyers involved, and this is important because the lawyers who handle these cases are very important because the Supreme Court only wants to generally hear cases brought by top lawyers they can trust. The lawyers involved with that appeal out of the Fifth Circuit to them next summer will likely be some of the best lawyers in America on this particular issue of administrative law and ATF authority.
And the next reason it's supposed to be a better vehicle. I mean, Joe Biden himself actually got a hold of the Supreme Court and was like, hey, don't hear these bump stock cases. This is a bad vehicle to decide this on. So what are we hoping for here? We're hoping for that he is in fact right, and they are going to hear the Cargill case. Unfortunately, even if he is right, that puts us behind the curb for another 2 years. And that's really bad. I mean, look at what's happened in the past 2 years, the lives that have been destroyed. All that stuff wouldn't have happened if they would have heard the original bump stock case right away. But, it is what it is. That's where we're at, so we're still hoping for that to go ahead and get rid of or severely limit Chevron deference. Will it? I don't know. So his theory is great, and I want it to be true. I just don't want to put a lot of stock into it because a whole bunch of things need to happen for it to work out. Number one, the en banc in the Fifth Circuit needs to rule that the 3-judge panel in the Fifth Circuit was wrong. They ruled incorrectly, and they're going to reverse their decision. Okay, so that's a pretty big deal, and we've already been to an en banc panel with the bump stocks before. We had, I think it was an 8-8 split, I believe, so it didn't work out so well. So that's one thing that could go wrong. The next thing that could go wrong is the DOJ could decide not to take it up to the Supreme Court. They might be like, hey, let's just let it die in the 5th. We're not going to request it go up to the Supreme Court, and yes, the 5th District will have legal bump stocks, but that's only one part in the country. And on the grand scheme of things, should this go to the Supreme Court and they don't rule favorably, it will strip away a whole bunch of power. So it needs to be taken up to the Supreme Court by the DOJ. Now the Supreme Court needs to agree to hear the case. They've already denied 2 recently, so we don't really have really good odds with that. Yeah, if he's correct, there's a reason they denied those, and they will hear this one. So now it needs to go in front of the Supreme Court. then we need the Supreme Court to rule favorably. Yeah, in my head, I believe there's only one decision for the Supreme Court to make, but I might have a biased outlook on it. As a matter of fact, I know I have a biased outlook on it. Is that a realistic look? Is that how the country feels? Is that how the Supreme Court feels? I'd like to believe so, but I don't know that for sure. I mean, the DOJ would have to say that no, that isn't the way it should be. So the Supreme Court may rule in favorably for that. And we may be stuck with Chevron deference. So again, like, yes, on this hand, I'm like, I really want this to work, but a lot of things need to happen for that to work. So I don't want to put a whole lot of stock into it. And then on the other hand, I'm like, don't give me hope. I mean, I understand that this is a stretch. I mean, not quite tinfoil hat stretch, but this is a stretch for this to happen. Anyway, thank you for watching. If you'd like to help support the channel, got my Patreon right there. I also have affiliate links in the description down below. Just by clicking on those particular links, even if you don't purchase that particular link is for, just clicking on it. Doing the Amazon shopping you were already going to do anyway. And a little kickback for it because you came there off my channel. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe.